Hoax by NuekerFilms Part 5. Hey guys. What's up? Grant slowed his fervent step to a trot when he spotted Caroline. You guys need to stop this now. You're only fueling Isaac to keep doing what he's doing. Caroline resembled a mother scolding her children, although she only stood out about shoulder level to them. Despite this, they looked absolutely terrified of what she might say next. Isaac? Grant stepped back. What about Isaac? He's the Night Stalker. Like, the real thing. I cut in. He's the one behind all of the attacks on the news. This is more than just some dumb prank to him. Ellipsis. I don't know why, but ellipsis shit like this isn't helping anyone. Ellipsis. He's putting people in real danger and I'm not going to go down with it. Ellipsis. I rambled on, trying to phrase my sentences in such a way that they conveyed the correct sense of urgency. Grant and Cameron stood silent for a moment, taking in the true severity of our combined actions. Oh my god. Ellipsis. Caroline paused, turning to examine her surroundings. Where is Isaac? He was supposed to meet us here right after school. Ellipsis. He hasn't said anything since. Cameron caught on to Caroline's revelation, and he, like the rest of us, started to fear the worst. Right before he left school, he said something about showing everybody how to play along. I began connecting the dots. He specifically mentioned me and ellipsis Riley Grace. What? Do you think that he's going to actually hurt Riley Grace? Grant finished my thought for me. I don't know. He didn't say he was going to hurt anyone, but ellipsis. I don't know. I kept backtracking on myself. He seemed pretty serious about whatever he was planning. Ellipsis, but he's not a psychopath. I wanted to give Isaac every opportunity to redeem himself, but at the same time, I didn't want to ignore the possibility that he was capable of a lot more harm than he let on. I am not going to take that chance. Caroline stepped forward slightly. Do you see how far this has already gone? Grant and Cameron lowered their heads, feeling partially responsible. Then let's go find him. A few minutes later, we had all piled into my car and were headed towards Riley Grace's house back in Pine Lake. We would reach the house in about half an hour, but I couldn't run the risk of Isaac beating us there, so I instead reached for my phone and dialed a fail-safe. Hello? Elizabeth answered quickly with a hint of confusion. What are you doing right now? Nothing much. Ellipsis. Why? Could you do me a favor? Who are you calling? Cameron leaned forward in between Caroline and me, almost worried. Just a minute. I brushed him away. What kind of favor? Elizabeth eased into my proposal. Listen. This is going to sound weird, but I need you to meet me at Riley Grace's house as soon as possible. What for? I could feel her pulling away. I continued to plead with her. I'll explain later, just wait for us to get there. Don't tell her you're there. No way. You're not bringing anybody else into this. Caroline interrupted. We can trust Elizabeth, I reassured. Elizabeth? Grant poked his head out from the back passenger's seat, a look of apprehension plastered onto his already frantic face. Might as well just call the cops and turn us all in, because that's what's gonna happen if you keep letting people in on this little secret. You do realize we're all connected to this, right? Cameron nodded sadly in concurrence. She already knows about Isaac, I confessed. And besides, she's a decent ways closer to Riley Grace than we are. We could use all the help we can get. Noah, this is weird, Elizabeth spoke up. I am not going anywhere until you tell me what's going on. It's Isaac, I said. I'm afraid he's going to go hurt her and I want you to get there first and make sure it doesn't happen. What? Elizabeth's voice shrank. So, you were right? My phone was ripped from my ear. Noah, stop. Caroline grabbed my arm. She has no place in this. You need to deal with your mistakes yourself. I pulled my arm away from her. She huffed in defeat before crossing her arms and turning to face the window. I returned the phone to my ear. I don't know about this. Ellipsis, Elizabeth murmured. If he's really this dangerous. Ellipsis. I don't know. It's getting dark out and I'm not about to break the curfew. Anyway, please, I can't stop this by myself. I paused, and then lowered my voice. Do it for me? Grant and Cameron both raised an eyebrow when I said that. There was another pause, but she finally spoke. Okay, Ellipsis, I am headed over there now. I'll see you soon, I guess. Elizabeth hung up. For the next 20 minutes, I raced against the falling sun as I made my way across town. The trees lining my path cast elongated shadows across the winding road into Pine Lake, and with the emergence of the full moon, the scattered shadows gave way to a heavy layer of darkness, caked by only scattered pools of light piercing the arched treetops. I felt like a prisoner walking back into his jail cell. We were the sole wanderers in a desolate world, all the community residents having retreated inside before curfew. The spill of light from some living room windows served as my only guide on the last remaining miles of the drive. Over there. Caroline perked up, pointing towards two familiar cars parked on the side of the road, about 500 feet ahead of us. I pulled off on the other side of the road, and rushed over to Isaac and Elizabeth's cars. Isaac was nowhere to be seen, and I assumed Elizabeth wasn't too far behind him. Ahead of us lay a narrow stone pathway that led up a hill to a small one-story house. If all was well, Riley Grace was sitting in that house, entirely unaware to the imminent danger that awaited outside. I hadn't received any updates from Elizabeth, and coupled with the fact that she had seemingly vanished, I was starting to get concerned. I dialed Elizabeth's number again, now more on edge than ever. The phone rang only once before she picked up. Despite her hurried answer, her speech was much slower, more methodical. She didn't even speak until she was prompted. "Elizabeth, hello." She hardly spoke, her words interspersed with heavy breaths and sniffling. "Elizabeth, where are you?" I couldn't make out a clear sentence. She seemed to only say, this was a mistake, and that she hated this, over and over again. I interrupted her yet again. "Elizabeth, we're in front of the house. Did you find Isaac? What's going on?" "Hello." My cries were answered as Elizabeth emerged from the woods on the side of the house. Her head hung low and her walk was feeble. By the time she reached us, she could no longer hold back her tears, and she fell against the side of her car. Caroline, Grant, and Cameron came closer as I grabbed her by the shoulders to keep her from collapsing onto the ground. "Elizabeth, talk to me. What happened?" She wiped a tear from her eye before she spoke. "I got here and Isaac was already back there in the woods I tried to stop him but he just She struggled to catch her breath. "I watched him walk up to the house knock things over banging on her window She looked out and realized it was him came out and then he just started laughing laughing like a maniac Elizabeth began to cry again. "Elizabeth, slow down," I pleaded. "Is everyone okay?" "No," she screamed matter-of-factly. She started yelling She told him it wasn't funny and he started yelling back. I didn't know what was going to happen and then she turned and she saw me. Elizabeth paused to stifle back another tear. "She thinks I was in on it I tried to explain, but she wasn't going to listen She thinks I am going around at night and doing all of this this bullshit Hey, I am sure she'll understand if she hates me now because of you," Elizabeth shouted. She stormed inside and threatened to call the police without another word. "The police?" Grant spoke up, panicked. "I am not sticking around for that." Elizabeth inched toward the driver's side door. "So much for your big heroic rescue." She slammed her truck door in my face and disappeared into the shroud of night before I could protest. And as Elizabeth disappeared, Isaac made himself known. I spotted him retreating from the woods. He stopped a few paces in front of us. His typical innocent grin decorated his face. He spoke as if nothing was wrong. "I am assuming Liz was with you?" He waited for any sort of response, but continued anyway after he was met with a panel of silence. "So, I see you guys decided to come back and join in the fun. Caroline, you never struck me as this type, but I'm glad you're exploring. Why were you here, Isaac?" I said before he could get another word out. "Like I said, I wanted Riley Grace to play along. I was about to head over to the soccer fields, but as you can see, I got a little hung up here because apparently she's too stubborn to get over herself and open up. Dude, get over yourself," I shouted. Suddenly, Isaac raised his hand, gesturing me to wait on him. "Yeah, just a minute, I'm getting a call." Isaac took out his vibrating phone and answered nonchalantly. "Hello?" Isaac said, stringing out his O's. On the other end of the line, I could hear the muffled voice of Riley Grace. "I told you to get lost." She was fuming. "Babe, come on." It was funny. Isaac weaseled his ill-fitting charm into this conversation. "This isn't funny. Now, please just leave me alone." Isaac's charm vanished with Riley Grace's continued insistence. He seemed confused by her phrasing. "What?" "Go home, Isaac." And with that she hung up. It only took Isaac a moment before he returned to slyly worming his way out of this confrontation. Like I said, she's being stubborn, but whatever. I cut him off, not wanting to hear any more of his stupid quips. "When you left school, you made it sound like you were going to kill somebody." "I can see that sorry." "I was a little fired up, but I am fine now," Isaac said calmly, smugly. "But then again, if I was going to kill somebody, why would I tell you where to find the body?" Isaac actually started laughing. "What the hell, man?" Grant stepped up. "Relax." Isaac contained his laughter, as he caught on to the fact no one else was joining in. "It's all a part of the character. This character just indirectly threatened my friend's life." Caroline in a spout of rage lurched forward and punched Isaac squarely across the jaw. He grabbed his face in pain, then slowly looked back up to face us. His demeanor devolved into something more volatile, sensitive, furious. "So, I guess the world is against me all of a sudden." He spoke softly. "My girlfriend is calling the police on my ass. Meanwhile, all my friends think I'm some sort of psychopath." "Nobody's against you, Isaac." "But this isn't normal." Caroline spoke apologetically. "Everyone's a little paranoid, and I think it's best if you quit before you get yourself or one of us hurt." "You know what I think?" He adjusted his stance to appear taller. "I think you guys are just a bunch of little bitches. What's the difference between what I'm doing now and what you were doing at the soccer fields? You're cowards. Isaac barked those last two words on my face, his voice morphing into something more hostile. You're so scared that someone might get their feelings hurt, and so that suddenly means what I'm doing is wrong? Isaac, you're legitimately starting to sound psychotic. Ellipsis. People are scared for their lives. Before I could finish, Isaac took me by the shoulders and threw me against the side of his car. Maybe they should be. He backed off, looking around at all the other people in the crowd. Isaac, you're angry again. You don't mean that. Ellipsis. How should you know? I am the Night Stalker. He spoke with an unhinged sense of pride. I'm a freaking urban legend around this town, and it's so damn fun. And you're so preoccupied with coming and rescuing some dumb bitch whose business isn't yours to begin with. And with that, all of the pieces suddenly fell into place. I raised my hand defensively, keeping him at a distance. This is about more than the Night Stalker. Ellipsis. Isaac, why were you here? Isaac got in my face, and spoke with a steadiness I hadn't seen from him in weeks. Stop prodding, Noah. I am not prodding. I returned the action. But death threats aren't how you handle your relationship problems. How about you stop trying to control my life? I froze, clearly treading onto some thin ice. Now is there anything else you have to say to me, Doc? The intervention was cut short by a faint police siren off in the distance. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, I heard Cameron groan. Let's go. I led a charge back to my car. In an instant, everyone broke into a furious sprint down the road, not stopping for a second. I fiddled for my keys and scrambled into the driver's seat as soon as I heard the liberating click of the door lock. My engine spluttered to life, my headlights illuminating the road ahead of me. However, my escape was halted by something in the road. It was Isaac, on all fours. From the looks of it, he appeared to be mumbling to himself, desperately scrambling for something buried in the cracks of the asphalt. I rolled my window to decipher his incoherent chatter. My ellipsis. My keys. Ellipsis. Where are my keys? Isaac was hopelessly grabbing around for something that was most likely buried under a mound of dirt and leaves back in the woods. Isaac's ramblings slowly dissipated as the police siren in the distance grew stronger. My greatest fears were converging all at once, and it was unclear what posed the bigger threat, Isaac's revealed deteriorating mental state, or the fast-approaching police car that would likely seal the fate of this whole endeavor. Suddenly, Grant interrupted my train of thought. What are you waiting for? Drive. He was right. I wasn't about to humor the possibility of letting myself get caught, but a part of me found it difficult to simply abandon Isaac and leave him to take the blame for everything, despite it solving both of my problems. Isaac sprinted around to my back passenger door, pulling forcefully on the locked door handle in a last-ditch effort to evade getting reprimanded. As he continually banged on the window, I locked eyes with him and I saw something that resembled a wounded animal caught in a trap. For the first time since this all started, Isaac was afraid. Just then, I saw headlights approaching from over the lip of the hill. The overwhelming wave of shouts from my passengers enveloped my train of thought, causing me to make a split-second decision that would seal all of our fates. I shifted the car into reverse and floored the acceleration, retreating blindly back into the veil of night, leaving Isaac to face the retribution for his actions. Please, help. Isaac sprinted towards my car, only prompting me to speed up. As I fully retreated behind the curve, I saw the pine branches lined up red and blue, as the high-pitched wail of a police siren echoed against the wind. No, no. I promise I didn't do anything, please. Isaac continued to shout in the direction of the lights. I didn't hurt anybody. It was all just a stupid hoax. Please. I couldn't take it anymore. I floored the accelerator and sped away. It was finished. We were innocent. We had our scapegoat. We were finally safe from the looming threat of Isaac Ellipsis, the Night Stalker. Blood continued to pulse through my body, but the pounding in my ears gradually eased out and was replaced by the steadying breaths of my friends in the back seat. It was finished. We were innocent. I arrived at home half an hour later after dropping everybody off, and immediately collapsed on my bed. I finally managed to stop heaving from my guilt long enough to fall asleep. It is finished. I am innocent. Asterisk. Over the next 3 weeks, the routines and patterns that help preserve our community, for the most part, fell back into place. After Isaac was exposed as the Night Stalker, many of Arab's public officials attempted to normalize the goings-on of the town. The day after Isaac was apprehended, the curfew was lifted, as the attacks, the real ones at least, appeared to be the product of a bored teen, and there was nothing else to fear. However, due to the semi-viral nature of the Night Stalker, the fallout of Isaac's rampage came soon after in form of several sporadic unrelated claims of citing the crazed entity as well as subsequent attacks, which were either largely disregarded or deemed as poor attempts of people desperately trying to get themselves on television. Although the majority of Arab was trying to invalidate everything associated with the Night Stalker, I was caught in the middle of a fury of several parties that kept me pulling back into the situation, no matter how hard I tried to forget it. My school held an organized rally in the gym. The guidance counselor came out and spoke to all of us, telling us that everything was okay, and offered us resources if we wanted to talk about having a knife-wielding psychopath in our hallways. The theater program was much less forgiving. I can vividly recall the lectures in class, at rehearsals, saying how what his act did was an embarrassment to the program, and anyone else possibly involved in all of this was inherently responsible for the program getting threatened. With shutdown, our delinquency had destroyed the theater's reputation, and also those of the students that comprised it. The repercussions of that night affected my circle of friends as well. While I remained primarily unharmed from the decision I made, I saw my once stable friend group fracture. Cameron was grounded heavily because of his heavy appearance in the sighting video with Rand, which everyone in town had seen by morning, and as consequence I hardly saw him outside of school, and even when we were forced to interact, he remained distant, as if he were ashamed by his betrayal by association. Grant similarly started conjuring up excuses as to why he couldn't be around the rest of us outside of rehearsal. I stayed quiet, as did everyone else, and so I slipped by without retribution. However, after Grant, one by one, everyone else gradually followed suit. Caroline declared outright that she wanted no part in having anything to do with the Night Stalker anymore, and as consequence personally removed herself from our friend group. Elizabeth found idle things to keep her preoccupied, to hide her guilt. It broke my heart to see firsthand what I had done to her and the rest of them. I was victim, yes, a victim of misperception. From my narrow point of view, I saw what I was doing as harmless and did not take into account the reasonings of others. Riley Grace was entirely justified in all of her tirades, but my skewed approach to the situation prompted me to villainize her and her beliefs in favor of his acts, which had consequently allowed that hellish persona to manifest itself.